to the meeting. Hope you've all had a good August and bank holiday weekend. And we will now go on. So there he is. Darryl, do we have any apologies, please?
Good afternoon, members. We have an apology from Councillor Wood for this afternoon's meeting. And in terms of committee members looking on the call at the moment, we can't see either Councillors Bolton or Musgrave. So at the moment, Chair, we're 3 members light of the committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, that's lovely. Thank you. Right, if we could confirm the minutes from the previous meeting of the 4th of August, members. I think probably the easiest way to do this is to go by pages. So page 1, 2, 3, 4, and page 5. Is everybody happy with those minutes, please? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. How are we signing these, Darryl? Do you sign them virtually for us?
Once you've agreed them, Chair, when we do eventually get to catch up again, you'll be probably asked to sign a whack-on block, Chair.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Thank you very much. Right, declarations of interest. Does any member have any declarations of interest? I'll take that one as a no then. And items requiring urgent attention. I don't have any. Have any come in, Mr. Molyneux?
I'm not aware of any, Chair.
No. Darryl, you haven't, have you?
No, none, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Public forum. I'm assuming there's nobody.
That's correct, Chair.
Right, that's lovely, thank you. And Hub Committee Forward Plan. So, who's going to lead us on that one? Is that going to be Neil, as he's here? Because I think I can see Neil's picture.
Before anyone does introduce it, Chair, if it helps, we've had no formal requests for formal updates on any particular items on that forward plan.
Okay, that's great.
Yes, Mandy, I am here and geared up to answer any questions. Let me just find the right bit on the agenda. So in front of you is the Hub Committee Forward Plan, which sets out the workload that the Hub Committee is expecting to cover at its next meetings. I think it's all self-explanatory. If there are any questions on any aspect of the topics being covered or the papers being covered, I'd be pleased to endeavour to answer them.
I've got one, Councillor Jury, and I'm not sure if it's going to be you or it's going to be Councillor Edmonds that needs to answer this. Is he there? There he is. Just on the write-offs, because I can see that's also coming up for the December, so the quarterly reports. Are we going to have a way of sort of monitoring the way this is going to be going? Because I'm assuming we're going to be writing off more as the year goes by. So is there an update as to how members will know what's going on, please?
I believe there is a quarterly update. Councillor Edmonds, you'd like to comment in more detail on that?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is a quarterly report to Hub, and indeed there's one going to Hub on the 15th of September. Yes, there's obviously a lot of information contained in those reports, and I normally give an update at the same time. So, and obviously further information can be provided if members request. So the plan is at the moment to continue on a quarterly basis, unless obviously, I guess, members wish to consider an alternative. But that is the plan, as far as I understand at the moment, to continue producing a quarterly report. But obviously that's one of the things that's on my radar, and in my update meetings I would have those discussions in terms of, you know, the write-off position, and if there were alarm bells ringing in the event of what may lie ahead over the winter, then obviously I would see as part of my role to bring that forward and not wait perhaps for the normal quarterly report.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Edmonds. Mrs. Buckle, you'd like to give us a bit more of an explanation, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I can just add a little bit more to that in terms of collection of some of our business rates and council tax. In the report that we will consider on today's agenda, we do set out our current collection rates for both of those, so we can go into that in detail when we're on that agenda item. In addition to the write-off reports, as Councillor Edmonds has said, we will be bringing those quarterly to members. Also, the Audit Committee also receive a 6 monthly report on arrears levels as well. So things like all of the arrears which sit on our balance sheet. There is a 6 monthly report which goes to the Audit Committee which looks at arrears levels in addition to that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs. Buckle. I think it's more, I was wondering, you know, if we're just going to keep like a running total and whether that goes within your government monthly forms that you fill in.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, so as part of the monthly government returns, we do have to estimate what we think, for example, our non-payment of council tax or business rates would be, and those returns are submitted on a monthly basis. There will be a reconciliation process as part of that, because the government acknowledged that at the moment those figures are estimates, and we won't have actual figures until we move through towards the end of the financial year, nearer to February 21 and March 21. Yes, the government have also said that they are looking to reflect within the spending review. They will look to spread how we can, if we have a deficit on the collection fund from council tax, they would look to spread that deficit over the next 3 financial years. So that was part of the government package which was announced a few weeks ago, but we don't have figures from the government as to how they're going to do that yet within the spending review, but the detail around that should come out very shortly, and certainly as we move into September and October we should get more information from the government around council tax and business rates and how that will be spread over the next 3 financial years. Thank you, Chair.
That's lovely. Thank you, Mrs. Buckle. Councillor Daniel, you have a question, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask about the recovery plan, and is it a composite of the ideas we discussed earlier in the year? And in what format will it be? Will it give us alternative ideas, and will we be able to see it before the 15th so that we can form our own ideas of what we would like to do? Thank you.
Mr. Mullen, or Councillor Jury. Sorry, Neil.
Yeah, I'm very happy to answer that. The recovery plan is, as you say, pulling together those ideas. It's on the agenda for today. We'll get to see the present position and an update there, and there is more work to do, and we'll come on to that later on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have anything else on the forward plan? No? Okay. So moving on, we go to the budget setting process. And that's Councillor Jury to introduce, and I think we will go from there.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very grateful to Mrs. Buckle and her team and to Councillor Edmonds for the work they've done in preparing for and delivering the recent budget workshop. I'm also grateful to members for their time and commitment to that process. The result of that work is contained within the report that's in front of you today. Of course, no one believes this is a question of job done and problem solved. What this report represents is a proposal for West Devon Borough Council to agree a balanced budget for this year, despite all of the turmoil, additional expense and reduced income caused by the coronavirus emergency. Much work to re-examine our medium-term financial strategy remains to be done, and that may involve more difficult decisions than the one in front of you today. However, now is not the time to reduce our capacity, which would affect our ability to support our communities and carry out our recovery plan. There will also be more vitally significant information available later in the year, including the government financial settlement, how our income streams have bounced back or not, and the support needed to reopen leisure. These will all impact on our medium-term outlook and the decisions we need to make later in the year. So the report asks members to recommend the proposal set out in section 5.2 to balance this year's budget. It also asks members to note the effect on our reserves. These will clearly be crucial for the years ahead. You will also see that we're seeking support for our proposal outlined in section 6 to provide a modest support package for town councils, which is designed to provide some resources to help with local recovery, including some ideas to help extend the season and encourage locals into towns once the tourists have gone. This funding would be drawn from the Business Rates Retention Reserve, which is earmarked in any event for supporting business within the borough. The recommendations are as set out on page 15, and I'd be very happy, Chair, to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jury. Does anybody have any questions, please? I can't believe that. Mrs. Buckle, did you have anything you wish to add?
Thank you, Chairman. No, I just wanted to thank members very much for all their support during the budget workshop process, for also the responses to the SurveyMonkey tool. So in section 5, we do set out there the options to address the budget shortfall, totaling the 501,000. And also, as we talked about previously, I have put some quite detailed figures in around council tax and business rates in section 8, in terms of what our net collectible debt is for the year, and what our collection figures were looking like by the end of June. So in 8.2 for council tax, our net collectible debt for the year is 43 million. By the end of June, we had collected 28.4% of that, and that compares to 29.06% in the previous financial year. So as at June, we've seen a 0.66% drop in our council tax collection rate, which would equate to about 282,000. So our share of that would be just under 34,000. In terms of business rate, I just also wanted to point out the changes in our net collectible debt. So normally we would collect an amount of around 10.6 million. That was our prediction for 2021. But members will be aware that there has been the expanded retail discount, and also the leisure discount, which means that our net collectible debt is now down to 4.86 million. And that's because a large part of our business rate base are in receipt of that 100% business rate relief. So that just shows how our business rate collectible debt has changed this year because of the discounts which have been given by the government, those 100% rate relief. And that's a picture that you can see across Devon, all of the Devon districts. We are saying there that business rate losses could total between 0.3 million and 0.5 million. The council share of that would obviously be the 40%, and we haven't assumed any pooling gain for business rates for 2021. But as we talked about previously in the spending review, the government have announced that they are bringing in changes to allow councils to spread their collection fund losses over the next 3 financial years. So that is helpful to be allowed to spread those over the next 3 financial years. And we are awaiting details from the spending review. So some of the key figures we really need to know from government are around new homes bonus. So members will be aware that we know that this was the last financial year of new homes bonus. There was supposed to be a replacement scheme coming in. We haven't had any details of that from the government yet, but that information is eagerly awaited. The other piece of information we do need from government is what's happening to negative revenue support grant. And again, we are pressing the government to say we do need some of these key figures to fit into our financial planning for the next 5 years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Buckle. Councillor Hipsey, you'd like to make a comment, please?
Yes, just a general comment, really. I'd just like to congratulate Mrs. Buckle and her team on what I thought was an excellent exercise. The whole workshop format, what I think was extremely effective and a really good way of dealing with these sort of matters. So many thanks for that.
Thank you. Councillor Spettigue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Mrs. Buckle, if you'd indulge me, just a quick point of clarification. Although I wasn't able, as you know, able to attend your budget planning workshop, am I right to think that the £80,000 cut in spending on the viaduct in Tavistock doesn't constitute a cut in what was being done so much as it was an overestimation of how much we'd need to spend? Is that correct?
Thank you, Councillor Spettigue. Yes, just around the viaduct, when we originally took that budget to members for £100,000, I think we were thinking that there would be some extensive repairs and maintenance needed to the viaduct. Since that date, we have had the viaduct inspected by a bridges team from Devon County, and they have actually advised that the main thing we need to do on there is some maintenance and vegetation work. So that's how we've been able to recommend that we can reduce that budget now, reduce that down to 20,000. So yes, it is just that the condition survey of the viaduct has meant that we can change that budget now and reduce that budget down. But the 20,000 will still meet what we need to do in terms of vegetation and some maintenance, but not any, we don't need to do any structural works to the viaduct.
Understood. Thank you. So it doesn't actually constitute a cut in services or a cut in provision.
That's correct. Yes.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Councillor Kimber, please.
Thank you very much. It's just a question about the Town Centre Support Initiative. It says we'll work in partnership with the borough's town councils. Can we have an idea when the town councils are going to be approached about this initiative? Thank you.
Who's going to answer that one?
Councillor Ewing, would it be interesting? Shall I chip in at this point?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Hello, Mr.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. I was just muted myself. I was midstream. But carry on.
Oh, sorry. Well, no, Councillor Jory, you carry on, because I'm sure I was only going to say what you were going to say. So you carry on.
Well, you undoubtedly will be able to add something. We've had some quite extensive conversations with Tavistock Town Council and in formulating these ideas, and also with in initial conversations with Oakhampton. I think we will need to go out and talk in more detail to the other towns. I think their needs are somewhat less, but we mustn't forget them, and we must make sure that they take advantage of whatever is on offer. So I will definitely be doing that. Mr. Brooke.
Thank you, Councillor Jory. Thank you, Chair. Well, exactly that. So I think it's been really warming, the conversations we've had to date, and I think they've been really well received. So I think the first point is those conversations are live, as Councillor Jory set out. They've started, and I need to get some dates in the diary for, as you say, the other key areas of our borough, to make sure that they don't feel not part of that journey, and we'll do that soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brooke. May I just ask of you or Councillor Jury, so would I understand that to be Oakhampton and Tavistock as the main, then Hatherley, North Taunton and Chagford? Are they the only other three towns?
That's correct. I think technically Chagford is not a town, but because of its nature and status, it tends to get included in those conversations. So yes, you're absolutely right.
Okay. Right, that's good. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on the amended budget report, please? No? Okay, then we will move to the recommendations. Is everybody happy that we take all three together? Okay, so the recommendations that the hub, that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee resolves to recommend to the Hub Committee: 1, to recommend to Council the 5 options set out in 5.2, totalling 501,000, in order to produce an amended revenue budget for 2021. Number 2, to note the future capacity of reserves set out in 5.8 and 5.9, which may have to be called upon to meet any future financial challenges and/or additional requirements. Number 3, to recommend to Council to use 70,000 from the business rates retention earmarked reserve to fund the Town Centre Support Initiative set out in Section 6. If anybody is not happy with those recommendations, could they shout or put something on the speech bubble, please? Right, okay. I will take that as a carried then, Mr. White.
Thank you, Chair. Just for those listening on the live stream, there's been no member indicating a wish not to support those recommendations, so we'll take that as a unanimous approval.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. And if we can move on to item 8, which is the draft recovery plan. Do I take that is Councillor Jury again, who's being a busy chap this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm very sorry, Chair, but it's falling in.
Oh no, we all like to hear your voice
today. Okay. The report in front of you, members, follows on from a report presented on the 23rd of June, recognising the Council's role in responding to the coronavirus epidemic and identifying the need to take a strategic approach. I'm very grateful to Mr. Powell and his team for pulling together this report, and to members for their contributions over a number of workshops on specific issues. What you have in front of you is a bottom-up process driven by members to identify key themes and proposals that we need to address. We now need to move these ideas forward, and the recommendations include provision for you to delegate authority to group leaders in consultation with the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny to nominate members to service various task and finish groups to develop those themes. Another layer of work will seek to tie in our proposed actions with the medium-term financial strategy and an overarching council strategy to be developed to take us through to 2023 and beyond. I seek your support to proceed in this way and will be pleased, with the help of Mr. Powell if needed, to answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jury. Mr. Powell, do you feel you need to add anything, or?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Leader. No, I think Councillor Jury's covered everything very well there. I don't intend to go through the report. It's quite lengthy, and hopefully members have had an opportunity to read through it, but happy to support the Leader with any questions. Thank you.
Okay, members, can we have questions from anybody? If you can pop them in the speech bubble that you'd like to question or comment. Wow, nobody? Right.
I think it's fair to say, Chair, that obviously members have had a lot of involvement in this process already, and many of the ideas have come forward from members. So there's been a lot of knowledge about what's going on, and I think it is a very good and comprehensive report. So
yes, it is. Yes. Right. Okay, then, everybody. With the recommendations, is everybody happy we take them on block? Okay, so that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee recommend to the Hub Committee to 1. Note the Council's continuing response to the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. 2. Note the outputs of the member workshops as detailed in Appendix 1. 3. Note progress on the development of the Recovery and Renewal Action Plan, the plan, as detailed in Appendix 1. Delegate authority to the group leaders in consultation with the Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to nominate members to serve on the task and finish groups as set out at Section 8.4. And 5, to take into account the conclusions of this committee on the plan. And 6, request that a further update on progress against development and delivery of the plan be brought back to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee at its meeting to be held on the 10th of November 2020. Once again, speech bubble if you're not happy with all of those recommendations, please. Okay, Mr. Waite, I will take that as everyone's agreed, as nobody's started to type yet.
Agreed, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, item 9 is the task and finish group updates, and I believe Councillor Cheadle would like to give us an update on the broadband issue. Thank you, Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you very much, Mandy. Yes, Steve Molyneux and myself had a internet meeting with Connecting Devon and Somerset a couple of weeks ago. For those that don't know about Connecting Devon and Somerset, they're an organisation, as the name suggests, set up between Somerset and Devon County Councils to look at providing broadband to the parts of those counties which commercial suppliers are not proposing to connect. Now, for West Devon, that translates as being around about 2,500 households across West Devon. So something in the order of 90% of West Devon either already has access to superfast broadband, or there is a definite plan with a professional provider like BT Openreach or Airband or one of the others to connect those properties. But that leaves 2,500 that currently there is no plan to connect. And that's where Connecting in Devon and Somerset step in and do what they can to facilitate those unconnected areas. So we met with Connecting Devon and Somerset because we wanted more information on what exactly they were proposing to do. And out of that meeting, two initiatives came, but just before I get to that, the game changer in this, and the reason perhaps that there's now more hope than there previously might have been, is that the government, under the umbrella of a thing called the Universal Service Obligation, has initiated a scheme whereby there's a grant of £1,500 per property, and more than that if you happen to be a business, which can be pooled with properties around the, groups of properties, as it were, can pool their £1,500 grant to form a sum of money, which then makes it affordable to run the superfast broadband to those properties. Previously there was a grant, but the grant didn't cover or didn't go anywhere near covering the anticipated cost of doing it. But the experience with this new grant is that if you can get a cluster of properties and they all apply for the grant and they get the grant, the total sum raised should be enough to complete the connection without the individual householders dipping into their own pocket. That's the difference, if you like, between the old scheme and the new scheme. The old scheme did require, in some cases, quite a sizable personal contribution. So Connecting Devon and Somerset now have a map of West Devon, and on that map identifies the properties that are not in a plan, either haven't been connected or are not in a plan to connect. So the two ideas that came out of our meeting, one was that we, working with Connecting Devon and Somerset, identify half a dozen or so clusters of properties that are, left out, and work with those communities to encourage them to apply for the £1,500 grants, and that should lead to them being connected. The only sort of sting in the tail, I suppose, is that if you apply for the grant and are awarded the grant, you do have to take up the service. You can't take the money and then subsequently decide not to bother entering into a contract with the provider for superfast broadband. But before you get to that stage, you do know, of course, what the cost of subscribing to the broadband would be. So you're not going in with your eyes shut. So the first strand of this plan would be for us to work with Connecting Devon and Somerset and identify a number of clusters and do what we can to get those connected. And the second strand, which is slightly reactive rather than proactive, is to advertise through our councillors to their communities, to the parish councils, and likewise that this scheme is available. We don't think everyone knows that it is. It does require local communities to organise themselves, to get together, to get households together, to agree to take up this offer. So there is some sort of footwork to do, but we believe it's worth it. And with a bit of effort and a bit of support, we believe we can make a sizable dent in the 2,500 homes that are being left out of the current broadband schemes. I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to say. The only rider to this is that we've worked with Connecting Devon and Somerset for some time now, and they not always as speedy to get on with things as we would like. So there is a requirement for us to keep nudging them and pushing them and coercing them into doing the things that they've promised to do. But we're up for that, and that's one of the things that the Broadband Working Group can set out to do. The final thing I would say is that I very much hope that out of the recovery plan, providing superfast broadband, access to superfast broadband, comes out of the recovery plan as one of our key objectives. I do believe it's one of the things that, although we don't physically run the cables, we can enable this project with our enthusiasm, with a little bit of support, and we could turn around and say that had it not been for the effort of West Devon, that some of these properties would not have otherwise been connected. So I think it is something that we can genuinely help to deliver. So that's the update. Steve, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think you've covered it very eloquently, Councillor Cheadle.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
That's it, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cheadle. Councillor Mott, you have a question, please.
I do, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to put a question forward. Councillor Cheadle, that's wonderful. I did actually have a letter through from BT regarding the scheme that you mentioned. However, when they came back to me, their estimates of the cost to connect me under this scheme was somewhere in the region of 20 to 30,000, and the work would not be carried out for 18 to 24 months. That is on top of the £3,400 grant that they said I was eligible for. They're even allowing for some of the other houses down in that area to come in on the scheme. There is no way between us, even with the grants, we would have been able to have covered that cost. That was for one of our farms. When I also asked about connecting me here, I was told that we weren't eligible for the grant because technically we are covered under the already supplied fibre network of the box that is 1.8 miles away. Therefore, we wouldn't be eligible for any grant or any scheme. So I'm just curious how some properties like ours would actually benefit from any super fast broadband, which just doesn't seem to be happening at all for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I can I can answer the question. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and I suppose there always will be, to a degree, very isolated properties where no scheme will reach. But certainly talking to and looking at the map that Connecting Devon and Somerset were able to show us, there are undoubtedly sizable clusters of properties where a scheme like this certainly would work if somehow we could enable that cluster of properties to work together and put themselves forward for the scheme. It doesn't address your issue, Caroline, I know, but it will hopefully address quite a large chunk of the properties out there that at the moment are on nobody's plans at all.
No, I do appreciate that, Councillor. However, I think before we start getting very excited about this scheme and its rollout, that we do need to be realistic, that if Openreach is saying it's going to be at least 18 months to 24 months before that's going to happen, that there are huge swathes of our borough that are still struggling. I know, for example, Germans Week Parish Council really struggled to hold virtual meetings. They are now having to go along the line of meeting physically because they cannot maintain an adequate internet connection to allow them to have a Zoom meeting. Now, bearing in mind there's only ever usually 6 or 7 people trying to get in on that meeting, it's just impossible for them, and they've been told that they are literally a few hundred yards from the connection, and they've been told by Openreach that there is no intention to connect eWorthy to that fibre connection. So they are really struggling, and I think we just really need to really push on Connecting Devon and Somerset that this scheme isn't happening as well as they portray it to be.
Yeah, I get that. I think you're right. There should be an opportunity where we can identify a particular opportunity, if I can put it that way, which, I mean, this all, in the end, I think, comes down to money. BT Openreach will only bother to connect up where they believe there's a financial return. Connecting Devon and Somerset do have money to do the bits that Openreach won't reach, if you see what I mean. So we do have an opportunity, I think, to identify those sort of communities and lobby Connecting Devon and Somerset to dip into their purses and facilitate it.
Councillor Cheetham, may I just ask, when at our last ONS meeting, didn't the chap from is it Airplan?
Airband.
Airband. Didn't he say that they have money, and in most cases that they've dealt with, people haven't had to pay by the time they've collectively sorted out vouchers and everything?
No, that wasn't the Airband chap. That was Matt Barrow, I think, was saying that from Connecting Devon and Somerset.
Right. Okay.
They have the government has launched this initiative. Connecting Devon and Somerset have, I can't remember the actual figure, a couple of $100 million, I think, and the lion's share of that is at the moment uncommitted. So they, in a sense, are telling us that they're desperate for these communities to come forward and ask for the money. And we saw our role in this is trying to put a bit of organisation into this, identify the scheme to those communities and make sure that they did.
Right. Okay. Councillor Mott, not very helpful to your individual case, but are you okay with the, well, sort of okay with your answer?
Sort of okay with the answer, thank you. I think if Councillor Cheadle could put something together for members so that we could then pass that on to our parishes, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yep, I will do.
Right. Mr. Molyneux, you'd like to make a comment?
Just thank you, Chair. Just to sort of echo what Councillor Cheadle said, I don't want members to be under any illusion that this is a quick fix solution. This will probably take the rest of the term of this council to make a difference, but I think there are more options now than there have been for a number of years. So there are, different providers in the area. There are different funding streams, and I think we just need to be coordinated in a concerted effort to push on all those doors. And I think it will be a question of he who shouts loudest, and we're going to have to do some pretty loud shouting, is my take on this. Thank you.
Apologies, but it looks like we may have lost the chair. If you bear with us, we'll try and get her back.
I thought it was me that was lost. While we're waiting for the chairman, can I pick up on Councillor Crozier's comments in terms of do we have the maps? Well, the maps are built in the Devon County Council GIS system, which is the spatial mapping system, and I think they'd be very difficult to reproduce, but we can drill down, and Councillor Cheadle and I saw that you can drill right down to individual properties and see clusters of properties and properties like what Councillor Mott identifies where they're probably outside of that cluster. So we can sort of get that level of detail. Can we reproduce it? I think we would struggle to.
Am I right in saying, sorry, I step in here. Am I right in saying the chap that briefed us on the last meeting seemed to indicate that the detail of the map was commercially sensitive?
He might have done, but he was certainly willing to share it with us and had it sort of on his screen for us to look at.
Thanks.
Just another point on that for Councillor Mott's disappointment. I think they said with a voucher scheme you probably need around 12 properties to make it work, which is a very large hamlet for West Devon, I would suggest.
Well, yeah, actually, Councillor Kimber, that's partially answered my question. My question was going to be, is there a minimum number of properties required to make a cluster?
I don't think there's a stock answer to that. It depends where they are, how close they are to an exchange and all that sort of thing. But there were no doubt in our minds when we looked at the map that was provided that there were quite a few sizable clusters which were not included on any current plans. So we felt it was an exercise well worth pursuing.
Can I ask a question?
I think we're still holding for the chair, if that's okay, please.
I realise, but just while we're waiting, I know in Africa there are very rural areas that don't fall within any network, that work outside the networks, and they work by things like balloons or other ways of ensuring connectivity. Are we in the mind to look into any of those?
My personal view, I can take that, Councillor Cheadle. My personal view, Councillor Kemp, is that we are not in the game of becoming a telecommunications provider. What we need to do is make sure that we work with those providers in our area to provide the cover that we can get, the best coverage that we can get. We certainly wouldn't want to start going down that route. But technology is evolving and changing very rapidly. So what might not be available today to fix the issues raised by Councillor Mott could be a new solution in 12 months that actually will work. So I think we just need to keep the pressure on and keep the and keep working with the broadband working group, along with Connecting Devon and Somerset, and if necessary, the individual providers. Can I suggest that Councillor Kimber? Oh, Councillor Ewens, are you back?
I think so.
Well, good. I was just about to hand over the chairmanship.
I'm really sorry, everybody. It's good to go on the internet one, though, isn't it? Right. Okay. Yeah. I don't see some of the questions now. I know Councillor Edmonds had one.
That's been done.
Thank you, Chair.
And we've done Councillor Kimber.
Yeah, all done. Thank you.
Councillor Spettigue.
Yes, please, Chair. Just to reinforce what Councillor Cheadle was saying, and also touches on comments made by other people as well. When the gentleman from the broadband group came and spoke to us, I did ask him about the size of clusters, and he didn't explicitly say it, but he did infer that there would be a minimum number of houses you would need to make it work. I think he might have even mentioned 8 or 9. Again, as Councillor Cheadle said, depending on the individual circumstances of the case. But even if we, as Rick's suggesting, we promote this and encourage people to apply for it, what we then do, once we get those groups of houses where the numbers do work, once we get them dealt with, then even though there are going to be people who fall outside of that, then if they've still got a pot of money, we can focus on those are the ones where they're diminishing returns for the organisation providing the internet. They're not cost effective ones to do, but if that's all we're left with, then we can concentrate on any remaining funds this organisation has being used for that. So I think this is a worthwhile thing to do, even if it doesn't resolve the issue for all the residents.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Spettigue. Thank you. Did anybody else have any comments? Because my comments box is a bit different, so speak now, please, because it's lost them all. Okay, I had a couple of questions that I wrote down. When they're saying that you have to sign up, you can't just use your voucher and then not do anything, do they specify who the provider has to be?
Yes. But basically the way it works is that, let's say 10 houses get together and form a group and apply for the grant as a group of 10 houses and get the grant of £15,000. They, and this is where Devon and Somerset can help as well, but essentially that group then applies to one of the providers, let's say BT Openreach, and BT Openreach will come, do some sort of a survey, work out a scheme whereby they can provide the broadband service and tell the cluster how much that's going to cost. The evidence so far of people using this scheme is that it's cost less than the total raised by the voucher scheme. There's no guarantee on that, but that's the experience that's been had so far. They then, the cluster then agrees to go ahead and have the service provided. And that's the point at which they have to sign up with BT Openreach or Airband or whoever the contractor that's going to deliver this service is, to take the service. What the contractor won't do is go to the expense of laying the service on and then find that no one takes it.
Right, okay. And my next question was, you say that you and Mr. Molyneux have seen the map, and apart from Councillor Mott saying, for example, like Germansweek and Eworthy, and I can think of some of the other villages around there, because I think Patchcott is still in West Devon just. Excuse me. Do we know of any other villages? Because Councillor Pearce probably knows of a few from when he first brought this to our attention. So does that map tell you where those villages are that are very hard to reach?
Yeah, it tells you every single property.
Oh, well, right down to the house.
Goes down to house level.
Yeah, Chairman, you missed when you dropped off. You missed the conversation about that. So yeah,
sorry.
it absolutely goes down to every property. You can see which ones have not got provision currently for superfast broadband.
Okay, so could that be disseminated to members for them to know within their wards what properties? So as Councillor Cheadle says, it's going to be fairly, like labour intensive and on the foot as to, for example, where Councillor Mott has quoted with Germans Week in their parish, do we know of a little cluster that's in there that we, because we know our wards, that we could maybe go to those people and set them on their little path?
Well, what we sort of talked to Connecting Devon and Somerset about was doing this in 2 steps. The first step was that they, using their knowledge of the maps, would come to us and say, here's a cluster, or here are a dozen clusters that we believe this scheme will cater for. And then we would use our sort of communication tools to reach those clusters, probably through members, through parish councils or whatever, saying, please get yourself organised, get together a scheme, because there's a strong possibility that this will deliver you superfast broadband at no cost. If we're successful in that endeavour and we can enable, let's say, a dozen clusters that way, we can then use that experience to say to other communities, look, this is what's possible. This is worked. So it is worth you, if you're in an area which hasn't got superfast broadband, to get together, get your communities to get together and apply for this scheme. So it's a sort of 2-stage process. One, doing the clusters that Connecting Devon and Somerset think are no-brainers, if that's the right word, but haven't applied, but need to. And then, once they're underway, going sort of to the next step of saying more widely, if you're in a group or if you know of a cluster that isn't supplied with superfast broadband but would like to be, here are the details. This is exactly how you do it.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Can I just come in there, Chair, as well? Sorry.
Certainly.
They originally, when we had started the conversation with Councillor Cheadle and Connecting Devon and Somerset, they were sort of advocating well, let's go out and tell the community we can do this, and we rein them back from that, because what I don't want to happen is for us to go out and set expectations that we then can't deliver because of the nature of broadband delivery. So that's why we sort of took the approach that we're taking, rather than sort of say to everyone, oh, there might be the opportunity to get superfast broadband and then disappoint people. So yes, we sort of changed their suggested approach to fit what we thought was right for West Devon.
Right, okay. Thank you for that, Mr. Molyneux. Councillor Hipsey, would you like to make a comment? You've come up on a list, but I'm not sure how correct it is.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a throwaway comment, really, that it seems to me that this scheme has a side benefit, spin-off, if you like, that if groups, as Councillor Cheadle just suggested, if groups of people in groups of properties effectively are, shall I say, getting together as a cooperative, if you like, in this respect, that's got to be a good thing in terms of social cohesion. One of the things I think everybody will agree with is that one of the few good things that's come out of the COVID crisis is that people are tending to help each other out a lot more. And as far as I'm concerned, this is probably going to boost that sort of tendency. Of course, there's always the danger that they could fall out over it, but I think just as a spin-off, that's probably worth just acknowledging. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hipsey. Right, thank you, Councillor Cheadle and Mr. Molyneux, for the work that you've done so far on this. And as you know, you've become a standing agenda item, so we can keep pushing forward with this, which will be good.
Chair, before we move on, sorry, Councillor Daniel is on the chat bar wishing to ask a question.
Oh, right. Sorry, she's not on mine, but there we go.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a message saying this message wasn't sent to Councillor Amanda Ewing, so I assumed you hadn't seen it. But I think actually my question's been answered. It was really what happens to people that have got a broadband provision, but it's really poor and intermittent, like happens in our village and South Seal village, where people are unable to have Zoom meetings because of it. So, but it seems as if you can apply for these grants from what's been said. So I can pass that on to the parishes. Thank you.
Yes, it might just be worth saying that although we're going to do what we're going to do, I mean, this scheme is open to any group now who wishes to apply for it. I mean, we're trying to make it easy for communities, so we're doing our enabling bit. But if a community out there somewhere wants to get on and apply for this grant, they don't have to have anything to do with West Devon. They can just get on and do it.
Okay, I will pass that on to the next parish council meetings. Thank you.
Yes, I know that bit works because where my mother lives, there's it's very rural, and there's a lane, probably a bit like Councillor Mott has come across, and literally the lane, all the houses along this lane are very intermittently spaced, but they can club together with their vouchers apparently, so so that they will put in the superfast along the lane. So hopefully it's not just, you know, us, but I think from what I gather from Mr. Molyneux, you said about this pot of money that there is there. So do we need to start sort of shouting to get some of this money?
Well, we will be doing, Chair, absolutely.
Good. Thank you very much. Right, so if we move on now, please, to item 10, which is the annual work programme. Just a quick question for Mr. White. Did you find, Darryl, what we thought was the missing item for the October agenda, or is there an officer on here who's sent a message asking for something to be considered? And actually, I think it might have been Mr. Hawke with his, I'm not sure.
I've done a search, Chair, and Mr. Hawke's currently on leave, so that's maybe give us another lead. I'll speak to Mr. Hawke when he's back off leave, but I did a search and nothing obvious came out the inbox, Chair, of my email system. But the only other thing I have to add following the recommendation on the recovery plan earlier this meeting, Chair, is that if that recommendation is subsequently approved by Hub, of course, what we'll do is then we'll update the Hub, the work programme for ONS, whereby the 10th of November meeting will include a further update on the draft recovery plan.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone else got anything they wish to add to the work programme? As we can see, October's meeting's looking quite busy. No? Okay, that's lovely, thank you. Mr. White, member learning and development opportunities arising?
The only thing to flag, Chair, is, of course, we are somewhat behind out of kilter now because we would ordinarily be looking towards our member budget workshop for next year, but of course we've had to bring the amended budget back, so me and Mrs. Buck will be looking for a date just to raise the members now for the budget workshop for 2021-22, so that will be happening in the next few months. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, members, I think that is it. I can't find the other bit. There's nothing else on the agenda, is there? No.
That's the end of the meeting, Chair.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating in the meeting. I think the bit that was very useful was Mr. Molyneux and Councillor Cheadle's, because many of you have very rural wards. I'm looking at a few faces and thinking, you know, Councillor Mott, Councillor Moyes, and Councillor Kemp and Kimber, you go out into patches, and we know that Councillor Pearce has. So I think it's something that we need to be able to keep now a watching brief on and actually really help our communities to become involved and to be able to get superfast broadband. So thank you very much, everybody, and I will see you all soon, and meeting ends, Mr. White.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. It's okay.
Thank you, Chair.